after hearing the initial concept of StrengthsFinder, often managers, first think, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd like to hear what puts each person at their best. But then pretty quickly after they start thinking, is this just going to give people an excuse to be lazy or to be low performers? Because if we're only focusing on strengths, then we'll just ignore their weaknesses. And I think you can rest assured that that is not at all what a workshop on StrengthsFinder is about, and it's not what the whole premise is about either. In fact, all of the research behind StrengthsFinder is founded on the concept of searching for what brings people excellence. And so it is finding what puts people at their best performance. If you want to talk about how specifically do we address weaknesses in a workshop, well, one thing is that we talk about the words that people have been putting behind them in their company. So often they'll use opportunities for development, or they'll call them weaknesses, but they'll talk about things that are actually not weaknesses at all. So one example is skill gaps. It could just be something that could be solved with easy training. It doesn't really have to do with their innate natural talents or how they approach the job. One could be experience gaps. So let's say somebody wants to take on a big global responsibility for multiple regions and they're not there yet. Well, they might have a weakness in that area, but really they don't. They have an experience gap. There's something you need to see them demonstrate that they haven't yet. And then the other is sometimes their talents actually are showing up in a not good way, in a not productive way, because they haven't been matured. They haven't been worked on. So something that's coming naturally to them is showing up like a weakness or like something getting in the way of performance, but it's actually a talent. And if matured, if worked on, if refined, actually could be one of their super gifts they could bring to your organization. So that's one half of it. We talk about noticing what is a skill gap, what is an experience gap, and what are blind spots, misapplied talents that actually aren't weaknesses. They could be some of your best gifts. Then the other side is, once you do find weaknesses, things that are getting in the way of your performance or getting in the way of a colleague's performance, then we have strategies for working around them. So to mitigate the weakness factor, you can job swap, literally down to the task level. People start swapping out things like let's say Jim is really great at data. He loves analytics. He loves slicing and dicing the data every way you can imagine. He gets really fired up and energized about it. You give the guy a pivot table and he's making it. Well, Amit, not so much. He likes making PowerPoints. He likes presenting in front of the executive team. And so those guys can actually swap the tasks that they're working on. Give one person the pivot table, give one person the PowerPoint and the delivery, and suddenly a 10-minute exercise has completely changed the way they feel about the job, because the 10-minute exercise isn't 10 minutes. As a leader, you notice it's taking them 30 minutes because they procrastinate, because they're using a lot of their headspace thinking about how they don't want to do that thing that they're not that great at, that goes a little slow for them, that they're not looking forward to. And so that's a key one, doing the partnerships and the swapping. But there are also smaller ones like reframing or reshaping the job over time. Sometimes you can reframe mentally how they're looking at a task. So if Amit doesn't like doing pivot tables, but he's not going to get to swap with anybody, he needs to do it, he can tap into the things that actually do drive him. So for example, if he leads with a responsibility talent and it really matters to him that he committed this to a teammate because his word is his honor with the responsibility talent, then that's going to bring him energy to get the pivot table done, not the fact that that thing exists or the outcome is there for him. So it's tapping into the motivators and the drivers that come from the inside. And then the last, we talk about stop doing lists and asking. So very often, stop doing lists can be accomplished because they might be, generating some work that has been done in that role for the last 10 years. It's totally obsolete and stakeholders don't even want the report or the outputs any longer, but no one has questioned whether anyone is still using it. So it's actually chasing down those things that are draining you and finding which ones you can stop doing. And then on the ask side, it's about enabling really great one-on-ones between a leader and a team member, because very often, well, obviously, managers are not mind readers, and very often they have no idea the small things that their team members wish they could do more of or wish they could do less of. So we have an inventory of their yucks and yays, and we keep it simple around here. And so they have this list, and we give them the tools to be able to have these discussions in their one-on-ones, so that when those project opportunities come up and when responsibilities can be shifted, there's already an awareness about where someone is and what they'd love to have more of in their life. So that's the general idea. There's no shirking responsibility around here, no ignoring weaknesses. We actually talk about how to reframe those, how to mitigate those, and how to take the ones that actually aren't really weaknesses and find the strategies for putting those to productive use at work.